Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. And if you're new here, welcome for the first time. And today I'm going to rank my top 10 horror authors that I've discovered since becoming a booktuber in 2022. Stay tuned. Okay, so you're not going to find any Stephen King, Clive Barker, Anne Rice, Michael McDowell, any of those authors on this particular list. These are authors I've discovered since the end of 2022 up until now, from when I've been on Booktube. And it overlaps a tiny bit with a video I did in 2023 where I looked at some new faces, but this is different. And the new faces, and I'm ranking them as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them. Also, I'm only going to include authors where I've read 2 of their books or more. But I am going to give some special mentions to start off. Okay, special mention, Jack Ketchum, Off-Season. Now I've only read Off-Season. I want to read Offspring, which is the sequel, quite soon. And an interesting thing about this author is before he became a writer, he worked as a short order cook, a soda jerk, I'm not sure what that is, if you're American you probably know, a lumber salesman, and he was also a friend, and he was befriended and he was mentored by Robert Bloch from Psycho fame. So yeah, interesting thing about him. My second special mention is Hailey Piper, author of Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy. Now she writes very weird, dark, messed up body horror kind of stuff, which is really out there. This collection of short stories had quite an impact on me, and I'm dying to read more of her stuff. I think there's something in the 3 Worms, I can't remember, 3 Worms in the King, but I'm going to track down more of her stuff. And then we got Mark Morris' Toady, only book I read by him. And if you've read it, or if you've read Summer of Night by Dan Simmons, you need to pick up Toady by Mark Morris. Now I'm desperately trying to find more by this author, and yeah, I just haven't been able to find anything. Now interesting thing about him is that when he was writing Toady, it was published, and nearly gave up. He was distraught because he thought, it's way too similar, but he went on and published it anyway, and to date there's been only 1 complaint showing that it's kind of similar to it, which is kind of interesting. Okay, in 10th position we have Laurel Hightower, and I've read Crossroads and Below, and yeah, interesting fact, she's an animal lover, loves a dog and a cat, and Layla is starting to scratch on cue as soon as I said dog. But she's got a cat called Yattering, and it's named after a Clive Barker short story, Yattering and Yak. That's from the Books of Blood, so that's kind of cute. And both the animals are also rescued. So yeah, Laurel, awesome stuff. And then, in addition to that, she grew up on horror movies. She loves horror movies, and she loves true life ghost stories as well. So these sort of things obviously have an impact on her writing, and yeah, her writing is absolutely gorgeous. Writes beautifully well, and I enjoyed both of the books, but I had a problem with both of them. With Crossroads, yeah, I absolutely loved it, but it kind of triggered me, and that's me, that's not her. And yeah, and it's actually kind of down to her skill, her writing, how vivid it is, that it made me uncomfortable. So that's definitely me, not her. And I still gave it 4 stars. As for Below, 2/3 of the book was absolutely phenomenal, 5-star for me. But as I said in my review of the book, I did not like the ending. It kind of had unanswered questions for me. But once again, I am in the minority. Most people absolutely loved that book. So I would highly recommend her. and I'm going to continue to read her as well in the future. That is Laurel Hightower. Okay, next up we have Jeff Strand, and I've read 20th anniversary screening, and a haunted forest tour that he co-wrote with James Moore. Now he's been nicknamed the Clown Prince of Horror, mainly because he writes horror comedies, and he's written a lot of books, and his work is kind of demented and a lot of fun. In 20th century screening, it's a mockumentary and it's a slasher, and yeah, it's definitely a horror comedy and laugh out loud moments, and there's some gross stuff there as well. He says that he's actually influenced by Jack Ketchum, and who was the other one, Richard Lehman. But yeah, Richard Lehman is a bit more pervy than him, that's for sure. The other book that I read, The Haunted Forest Tour, is an insane ride. It's absolutely demented. And it's carnage, and there's monsters everywhere, and it's just so much gory fun that you'll love it. So pick this author up. Okay, next up we have Elias Witho, author of The Black Farm and Return to the Black Farm. Now, besides stating that he wants to breathe new life into the horror genre, I found nothing really about this author. All I can do is explain why he's on this list and just give you warnings about this particular book, because it is graphic and disturbing and messed up and gory and nasty on every possible level. Don't just check a trigger warning, check for all the trigger warnings. It is one of the most disturbing books I've read, but the reason why I like this author so much is his world building. Okay, he's never going to be his work's never going to be a literary masterpiece. His writing is not that brilliant, but he builds worlds. He built this world of the the Black Farm, and you get thrown into it, and it's grim. It's relentlessly grim and dark and bleak throughout the book. There's a sense that there's no escape. And the horror, it is so gruesome, and it's just one thing after another after another. Yeah, it's kind of relentless. But what I love about him, as I said, is the world building. Very, very special. So I might track down more of his books as well. That is Elias Witho. Okay, next up we have another splatterpunk author, Christopher Triana, and I read Gone to See the Riverman and The Prettiest Girl in the Grave. Now, if you're interested in discovering a little bit of extreme horror, I recommend this as an entry point, because he's disturbing, but he's not anywhere in the same kind of realm of Elias Witho or Jack Ketchum or Edward Lee. I found his books disturbing to a point, but beautifully written, kind of gorgeous, and especially Gone to See the Riverman, just so rich and imaginative, and it's disturbing for other reasons. You need to check trigger warnings, but it's not gratuitously violent or kind of overly gross or violent. There's other reasons for checking a trigger warning. I did read a part that made me feel very, very, very uncomfortable, so just check out for that. Just an interesting thing about this author is that before dedicating all his time to writing, he used to make music and he used to be an artist. So he was doing all three, and he decided to get rid of the music and the art and focus all his dedication on his writing. And 2 years later he hasn't looked back. Now, one thing I need to say about a lot of these authors, these indie and self-published authors, they have full-time jobs. They come back from their full-time jobs, and it could be 11, 12 o'clock at night, and they'd have to write. And that's the dedication that they have for their task. So yeah, and I really recommend that you give these guys a peek, check them out. And yeah, that is Christopher Triana. Okay, in sixth position we have Patrick Burke. And I've read Sour Candy and Blanky so far. And when asked why he writes horror in an interview that I read online, this is what he has to say. Why not? I write horror because it feels like the most honest, means of confronting the things that scare me. It's a way to explore my own psyche, my own traumas, my own fears. And I don't have to mute the colours to suit the expectations of rosier genres. So it's quite a profound statement, but it's kind of true as a reader as well. Yeah, we're just confronting our fears. And it's funny how in other genres, people don't ask you, why do you read romance? Why do you read men's adventure? It's always, why do you read horror? Why do you do that yourself? Kind of dumb, really. Okay, anyway, this guy writes disturbing stuff. He writes Nightmare Fuel. Sour Candy and Blanky. Blanky in particular really shook me. No pun intended. But yeah, it really shook me, rattled me. And another thing about this author is you don't expect happy endings. He takes you into a dark tunnel. It may well be no way out. And it just gets worse and worse for the protagonist. So yeah, I really enjoyed what I've read by him so far, and I plan to keep on looking up his stuff. That's Patrick Burke. Okay, next up we have author I'm a little bit late to the party, and that is Shirley Jackson. And I've read Haunting of Hill House. Unpopular opinion, people didn't do it for me. The Lottery, which is a great short story, and We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which was a 5-star masterpiece for me, and the reason she's on the list. Her writing is creepy, it's subtle, it's unsettling, it gets under your skin. Just the most creepy characters, particularly in that book. I've done a whole review of it, I think I'll link it at the end. And yeah, she writes the gothic thing so well. And here are a few things that you probably never knew about Shirley Jackson, that I'm going to share with you. She flunked out of college, spent more time hanging with her friend than studying. That sounds familiar to me as well. Also, her parents didn't attend her wedding. He was Jewish and the parents were anti-Semitic. That's quite a hectic thing. And she wrote The Lottery, famous short story, in a single morning. And there were confusion as many believed it to be a factual report. Because I think when it was submitted, stuff wasn't really distinguished from fact and fiction. And so a lot of people believed that that was actually the case. Where is this community? And they got scared. So yeah, that's kind of creepy. And she's great. And I would highly recommend We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And I'm going to say, mine is an unpopular opinion, so read The Haunting of Hill House as well. You might really enjoy it. Okay, next up we have Algernon Blackwood. Now, a classic author. He's so high up on my list because of the power of 2 short stories that I've read. And that is The Willows and Wendigo. Now, The Willows in particular blew me away. Just such an amazing story. Read it in one sitting, thought about it for ages afterwards. Now, the interesting thing about this author is that he's had quite a varied career with a lot of different jobs. Just listen to this. He has been a dairy farmer, a hotel operator, a newspaper reporter, a bartender, a model, and a violin teacher. So yeah, he's kind of been all over the place. Kind of glad he wrote as well. And none other than H.P. Lovecraft held him in high regard and had this to say about him. Of the quality of Mr. Blackwood's genius, there can be no dispute, for no one has even approached the skill, seriousness, and minute fidelity with which he records overtones of strangeness in ordinary things and experiences. And he definitely does write very weird stuff. In fact, sort of at the forefront of weird. And he writes ghost stories as well, and supernatural. So yeah, that's Algernon Blackwood. Okay, next up we have R Lansdale in 3rd position. And I love this author. And he's described almost as a genre unto himself. He's got a kind of voice, special voice, a Lansdale voice, Texas voice. And I've read 3 of his stories. I've read The Driving, which is probably out and out horror, probably. And then I've read Savage Season, which is episode 1 of his Hap and Leonard books. And I really want to read more of them. I just can't find them in this country. But those are crime mysteries. And yet they are dark. There are horror elements for sure. And then I read a splatterpunk western called On the Far Side of the Desert with Dead Folk. And yeah, this is truly gruesome. Also very dark. And running through all the books I've read so far by him, it's just this dark humour. He just doesn't take things as seriously. Well, he does. He's a very gritty writer, takes things seriously. And I was going through the internet and I found a very interesting interview. It was none other than Robert McCammon of Boys Life in Swansong, who was interviewing R Lansdale. And in the introduction to that interview, this is how he described him. His work is full of fierce nobility and resists being caged. His work changes colours and blends easily into a variety of backgrounds. R Lansdale has written horror, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, suspense, westerns, men's adventure. Joe has done it all and keeps getting better. So yeah, love this writer. As I said before, he's got this distinct style, distinct voice that I really enjoy. So I'm going to track down more of his stuff. That's R Lansdale. Okay, my second placed best horror author since I've been a booktuber is David Soden. And I've now read 2 books, The Horror and Maggie's Grave, which is freaking awesome. Now this man says that his biggest influences as a kid was collecting rubber skeletons and watching loads of horror movies. And he actually talks about horror movies as his biggest influence on his writing. And this is what he has to say. He says, I write my books as movies I'd like to see and visualize them in my head as I'm writing them. That's interesting, because when I read Maggie's Grave, which is probably my favorite, I'm about to read The Forgotten Island probably next, but when I read Maggie's Grave I thought of a big, great kind of horror movie. Very, very gross, but like a roller coaster ride. All sorts of very vivid imagery, interesting characters that killed in interesting ways, but that it just kind of develops at a breakneck speed. And that's my experience with this particular writer. An interesting thing as well is that he was inspired to write Maggie's Grave because he visited a real life witch's grave in Scotland, which is said to be the only living monument to witchcraft in the United Kingdom. So that's interesting. Okay, and everyone, here we come to number 1. And I've raved about this author before. I'm going to rave about him again now. And that is Chad Lutsky. And so far I've read Skull-Faced Boy, which was my favourite, Stirring the Sheets, Wormwood, Bruises on a Butterfly, and How the Skin Sheds. And all of them have been 5 stars, except for Wormwood, but that's okay. And he's just becoming one of my favourite authors of all time. He just writes horror from the heart. He writes characters that you feel, and I'm just speaking from the heart now. I'm not even giving any background information about him. He just writes just so superbly well and draws you into the world with his characterizations, with his settings, and with his feel, and with his ability to make you feel emotions and to get into the heads of these characters in tough situations, in damaging situations, because his horror is damaged, and you feel empathy for these characters. And it's coming of age for the most part, and I love coming of age. And in fact, he did say in an interview that he was influenced a little bit by Boys Life, Robert McCammon. But yeah, I just love his horror with heart. And a lot of people maybe say that he's a little bit YA. He is very dark. A lot of his stories deal with very difficult difficult situations, and he writes kids so well. And it's about kids in these situations. It's about abuse. It's about loss. He writes about very hard topics. So don't be fooled. And also, go and read How the Skin Sheds and come back and tell me if he's YA. That is a splatterpunk western. A lot of fun, but also with a horror with heart. But maybe this time the heart has been stabbed a few times. Maybe a little bit tattered and blacked and bruises and a little bit of blood dripping out of it. This is also an awesome horror author, and I highly, highly recommend him. And if you haven't checked him out already, go and check him out. Yeah, that is Chad Lutsky. And before I stop, I actually wrote down, because he did a little dedication for Skullface Boy, which I thought was kind of cute. Dedicated to the bullied, the parentless, and the unique. May the shallow arseholes one day envy you. This book is all about the outcasts and my boy with a skull for a face, and he goes across an across-country odyssey across America, and it's epic, and he meets all these characters that are in some way outcasts as well, in some way different, and it's just about celebrating our uniqueness and being part of the human race and not being treated differently. And he goes to find someone else who also has a scalp for a face. I won't say anything else about the story, but it is beautiful. Made me take notes and made me want to read it again straight away. And I probably would have if I hadn't other books to read as well. But yeah, that's Chad Lutsky. Okay everyone, so that's actually 13 new authors for you to check out. And these are authors that have had an impact on me since I've joined Booktube. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. And just I want to repeat, a lot of these authors, not all of them, some of them are kind of self-published. They work really, really hard, and they're also indie authors. And yeah, go and support them, check out their work. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Start a conversation with me, I always enjoy that. And until next time, take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.